Be live right about now. If you can see me, let me know. If you can hear me, also let me know. My name is Joe Barnard, and you're watching Disney Channel. Here's the deal, pals. Is that a plane? Yes, it is. Look, here's the plan. Can you hear me? I probably picked pretty much the worst location to be doing this. Okay, live chat. Here we go. Seriously, where is he? Here we go. Oh, here's the deal, folks. I'm streaming with about a 30-second delay. I should be in 4K. Let me see if I can trigger that. If you're here, I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you're here to see a crazy, fun, silly, very, very entertaining stream, get out. This is not for you. Okay, live. Okay, great. So it sounds all right. It's very windy here. I brought a chair that's too small, so I look like a child in front of this table. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so try streaming it in 4K. That was really what I was interested in today. Here we go. Seriously, where is he? Okay. I think I'm a little out of focus, so let's dial that in. I don't have a good read on exactly where it is, but this should help. Actually, you know what I can do? Is I can make this super big. This whole thing, the plan is for this to just kind of be like whatever. So, is that focused? Yeah, that's pretty good. Looks like I might also be out of sync. I don't super care about that. A little out of focus. So let's. I don't. Okay, yeah. So it's got to be like a 20-second delay. Actually, you know what I can do? Is I can make this super big. This whole thing, the plan is for this. Okay. To just kind of be like whatever. So yeah, is that focused? Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a little choppy. Looks like I might also be out of sync. Okay, actually the sync looks okay. It is a little choppy. Let me go down and see if that's just the player and my computer having trouble. If I go down to 240p, so, yeah. Is that focused? Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a little choppy. Okay. Looks like I might also be out of sync. This is not too bad. Okay, actually the sync looks okay. It is a little choppy. All right, so here's the deal, pals. You can see behind me, I got this big fancy antenna, which is a lot of fun. You actually can't see it that well, but it's behind my left shoulder. That'll be on your right. It is pointing in the direction of the nearest cell tower. I am streaming this because I have a launch tomorrow. I have Sprint Flight 6. I'm really excited for it. It's gonna be pretty fun. And the big deal with Sprint Flight 6 is that we're flying with Ava, which is the new flight computer that I have designed. Ava, you know what I can do? Is probably get some nice close-ups on this. Here we go. Ava is a super fancy flight computer built to be the Bugatti of flight computers. Looks like we're dropping a couple of frames. Yeah, the goal is the Bugatti, Lamborghini, sports car, whatever, really good flight computer. I'm really proud of how it's looking right now and how it came out. I have run into like maybe 2 or 3 issues that I didn't anticipate after design, which is pretty good in terms of, you know, a complicated PCB like this. But the big deal with Ava is, come here, little buddy. I have to tape everything down because things keep blowing away. Well, okay, I'll just attach it first. The big deal with Ava is we have this little connector right up here, and this is our telemetry radio to beam data back down to the ground. And when it gets to the ground, it gets into our computer through this beautiful ground electronics box. It says bps.space on there. We got a nice little antenna. It is a monopole, not a dipole, as I said many times that it was a dipole, and I was wrong. It's a monopole. So, I actually have the setup running here. It's good that the laptop is doing this well, and I want to note that I have started doing this at 4 p.m. roughly. How's the choppiness? Is it okay? Yeah, the frames are skipping sometimes. I might dial back the bit rate and see if that helps. I kind of feel like it might. We'll see. The upload speed is insane here, so it could be that. It could just be my computer. If it looks choppy to you, but truly choppy, not like the images are crisp, because I'm at a really high shutter or low shutter angle. Okay, very laggy, decreased to 2K or something for launches. So 4K isn't worth it, everyone. Seems like that might be a consensus. Video and audio lag. Okay, so I might go, it's okay, sometimes choppy. See, this is great. This is why we test, because I don't want to be dealing with this kind of like, is it laggy? When we're launching. I live stream these launches for patrons, and I am Joey B, and welcome to Rocket Talk. So I live stream these launches for patrons, and I want it to go really well. I only had a few FPS drops when you were switching the scenes. Okay, so it was choppy during the zoomed in, but it's fine otherwise. Yeah, that could be legit. That could be legit. Let's leave it for now. 4K isn't worth it, in my opinion. Audio out of sync. Okay. I'm gonna dial back to 4K. I'm gonna dial back to 1080. It's going to cut out for just a second, okay? Don't freak out, don't lose your head, but it is going to cut out for right. So, all right, we're coming back now. Dropped a couple of frames on the intro. We're coming back, and okay, so it seems like the audio stuff is on maybe not everyone's end. Audio and video not in sync at all. Some people think the sync is fine. Sync is on my end. All right. Okay, we do be back. V-smooth now. Looks like people are happy with the quality now. It's not 60 frames per second, that's intentional. I'm not doing the 60 FPS, I don't think it's worth it. Okay, it looks good. Sync is fine. It seems like we've sort of leveled out. This should be 2K now. It's above 1080, which is just as a treat. Okay, yeah, 1440. So let's see, let me double check. Yeah, okay, so it's 1440p. It's a little above 1080, which I think is good. Now, oh, hi, Parker. Everyone congratulate Parker on, Parker is the new intern for BPS over the summer, and I already have been working on a really cool project, and I'm super stoked about it. Uh-oh. Okay, we just dropped a bunch of frames. It drops to nothing for just a moment, and then it'll come back. Thank you, Anchovy Knowledge. Thanks for the super chat. Well, now, folks, let me tell you what. Here's what. We are here. Oh, man, I have just no space on this screen. So what I'm going to have to do is get it up on my phone. Why don't I just go ahead and start the chaos here. Whoa, look at that. How about it, huh? So this is the telemetry ground station for Sprint, and you'll notice it looks exactly like the ground station for Sprite, which makes sense because it pretty much is. I gotta get this up on my computer here. Standby. And we are not connected to anything, so we shouldn't be seeing anything. And in just a second, we will, we'll I got my own ad.
Oh, and right after that, we had to stop production.
Gotta get this up on my computer here. Okay, here we go. Got my own ad, which is a fun little treat. I'm also gonna take down the quality a little bit. I think we don't need 10,000. Let's go to like 75. That's gotta be plenty. I don't need that much. Also, thank you, hold on, I gotta get the chats up here. Thank you to Thom Pasco. I found a Joey B music channel. Is that you? He also made a Watch People Die Inside compilation with the carbonated milk. But the Watch People Die Inside, I didn't know that was gonna happen. It's just, I don't know, it's there, whatever. The Joey B music channel, Joe Barnard Music, I think it's called, is real. That is a real thing. I went to Berkeley, I did music stuff, and then I did rockets. All right, everyone, welcome to the ground control setup. Let's go through and take a look at what we've got here. Why don't I boot the computer up? We'll talk about, you see where it says starting up there? I'm gonna boot the computer up. Okay, yeah, here you go. You can see it. So let's, oh, I like that the wind has died down too. Hopefully that holds for a little bit. Kind of want to tape some of this stuff down. There's just a lot going on, and I don't want to lose anything. Okay, that should still be somewhat in frame. Okay, great. So then, one more thing, I need a battery. Shoot, I didn't bring that to the table. Hold on. Stand by. Oh, antenna. All right, pals. Listen up and listen good. We have a lot to do. We don't actually, it's a pretty chill day. So this is a GPS antenna, and it does pretty much what it sounds like. I'm gonna tape it down. It is a helical antenna. It's good in lots of orientations, which is why I picked it, and it's pretty lightweight, which is also good. If you want to put things on rockets, you want them to be lightweight. I'm gonna hook this up to Ava here. Kind of hard to get the orientation to play nice. Okay, hold on. Just a regular SMA connector for this. I can look at the chat in a little bit, but I want to set this up first. Sorry if I'm missing any important chats here. Okay, that's on there. Luckily, tomorrow, as long as things go to plan, we're launching tomorrow. It should not be this windy, because this amount of wind is not super acceptable. Even with GPS, this would be too much. Oh, my mic! Whoops! Sorry, everyone. All right, that should be much better. Now we need to plug the thrust vector control servos in here. And this is just as a little demo, as a treat. This is the y-axis. Okay, this wind kind of makes everything a nightmare. Okay, great. That's all done. Tape this down. I'm gonna tape the battery down. nothing is to leave this table. And it might seem like I'm being overkill, but I promise you, things went everywhere before I did this. I can hear the wind howl. Oh no, here's a guy. I hope he doesn't come by. All right. This is almost better with errors. It feels more authentic. It is authentic. Thank you, Thomas. All right. If I've missed your chat, I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of chats, and I'm doing this. This guy is going to walk by me, and he's going to think I'm a big weirdo, and I am not looking forward to that. So let's do a couple of questions while we're here. What is the wind speed? It has to be like 15. If someone wants to look up like Nashville wind speed right now, you'll probably find it. Let's see. Thanks, Nightbot. All right. Ooh, Nathan says, Joe, if you saw on Discord, I was at Norfolk Airfield today. Flying my new RC plane. Didn't go very well. There's video on the Discord. Nathan, I'll have to check that out later. That is a huge field. You could do some fun stuff there. I'm glad you got to try it out. Behind me. All right, it's a good meme. I'm not gonna fall for it multiple times though. All right, let's talk. You and me, right now. Actually, no, let's not. Let's turn the computer on. So I'm gonna boot it up, and you will see it connect to the ground station. You should, as long as the station hasn't frozen. I'm gonna make a note here. 86% battery life, 4:16 p.m., so 16 minutes into the stream. Excuse me. Do I want YouTube Premium? No, I'm gonna skip that trial. Stand by. Okay, is this still going? As long as the station hasn't frozen. All right, great. Ready? Here we go. Booting up. Okay, and here we go. There's our data coming in. We have gyroscopes, accelerometers. The first thing you want to pay attention to is under the starting up panel. Look down to see GPS sats. You're going to start to see that number climb up as we acquire GPS satellites. Although this is the first time I've plugged in this antenna, there's a chance it won't work, but it seems unlikely. It should be a good antenna. Okay, here we go. Nav converging. Looks like the GPS sats, I need to update some of that code on the computer. That should update soon though. Nav converging means we are starting to get a solution, and pretty soon we should have that and be ready to launch. Just watching it here. Okay, we've got 4 satellites. The PDOP is going down. That's our dilution of precision. So that's once we get below about 4, once we get it below 4 and we see a couple other good characteristics on the computer, okay, here we go, ready for launch. So the computer has increased its beeping rate, and you can start to see the YZ position and YZ velocity moving around a little bit. Boy, I hate this wind. But yeah, you can start to see those moving around a little bit, and that's that. I mean, that's pretty much it. So we're ready to launch. The computer takes care of all of that. You'll start to see, keep looking at that GPS sats, also pause UNC, vel UNC. Those are position uncertainty and velocity uncertainty. Those are gonna start going down. Position is a little high right now, so you'll see that XY position sort of walk around. And then every 5 seconds or so, that XY position is gonna zero itself out. Why? Why with the wind? Can we not? Oh boy. Also, you can sort of see when it gets windy, our altitude changes a little bit. The altitude is barometric. It's purely barometric. So, let's see. Hey, the faulty. Are you trying to find where I am? I would appreciate it if people did not try to find where I am. That stuff makes me real nervous. Okay, so let's walk through what we've got going on here. Velocity comes in. Velocity is just GNSS right now, so it's pretty noisy. Although if you look at the scale, it's not too bad. That comes in as northeast down data into the GPS, the GNSS. Boy, we are not connected to many satellites, so all right. Well, that's okay. I have a pretty good view of the sky, though. It's surprising. I guess 9. Okay, and we're in a new location, so it's a little different. But the velocity comes in as NED, northeast down, and we take the east and the down. Sorry, the east and the north. We rotate them through the ground heading. Shoot, I have to do that. Oh my gosh, I have to do that. I have to put that in my calendar. I keep forgetting. Ground mag cal. There's a function in the computer that calibrates the magnetometers on the ground, and I left it out because it's a pain in the butt to do it every single time. But now, as we start to near launch, I can't forget that because without calibrating the magnetometers, we can be as much as 20 degrees off in our initial orientation, and that starts to really mess with the GPS. It will probably still close if we have a 20-degree roll disagreement, but it won't close very nicely. I should probably look at the chat here. All right, position comes in as latitude and longitude. We set ground points pretty much continuously while we're in the ready to launch state. It is so loud here. I am so glad that I did a practice stream so that we could just get all the bugs out of the way. This is not where I launch either. What was I trying to say? Oh, okay. Velocity is NED. It comes in, we rotate it through the ground heading, then we have our inertial, I'm calling it inertial, it's not truly inertial, but we have our inertial velocity, which is our velocity in reference to our local Z and Y axis. Based on the pad heading. So when I say inertial, I'm talking about, measurements in reference to the vehicle's state and orientation and attitude on the pad. Okay, same thing with XY position, comes in as latitude, longitude. You can still see we're constantly setting those home points, you can see we're constantly setting those home points and zeroing that out. And then as we acquire more GPS sats and we try to get that PDOP down, the dilution of precision, all that stuff down, as that goes down, we should, wow, the board temperature is pretty low. I thought it would be much higher. Anyway, as that stuff goes down, we get a better estimate. We're going to try out a couple of different antennas today too. Okay, you can see where it says ready to launch. That's just the system state. And if you look right under that, it says sys state 2. That is what the states are. So the states are 0, which is nothing. No communications with anything. Oh no, sorry. 0 is we don't have any access to any global positioning data. State 1 is we have access to global positioning data, but it's not reliable and it's not high enough quality that we can start to base things off of it. So it's effectively state 1, but effectively state 0, but state 1 is like a progress update. And then we stay in state 2 until I yeet the computer up to simulate a launch, and then it goes through the whole flight profile. We'll do that later. Again, so we have our estimated mass, the signal strength, 28 dBm. The telemetry rate is a solid 40 hertz, which is way better than it used to be for Sprite. I did a lot of work on that.
The progress.
Okay, hold on.
And then we stay in state 2 until I yeet
How
the
do I
computer up.
not have this sound? So, boy, this chat is a mess. What am I trying to say? So, yeah, we have a much higher telemetry rate now, which is great for diagnosing things. And as we start to climb higher and higher with these rockets, getting really good telemetry data is important because at some point there is increasing potential that we will just lose the vehicle, and that telemetry is all that we will have as a reference for what went wrong, where it went, anything like that. Gyroscopes, you can see, are not very smooth. That has a lot to do with how the computer is mounted in reference to the wind. That flat plane, that orange axis right there is just flopping back and forth in the wind. You can see if I do that, I get a big orange spike, right? So that's what that is. Accelerometers, green is the x-axis. I've switched up my axes so they're correct now. X-axis going up through the vehicle, z-axis pointing toward the camera, y-axis off to your left. Okay, body orientation X, I need to update this. This should be the ground roll. I'm gonna make a note of that. Why is this tilted so far over? Is that not the center point? I'm gonna have to look at that later. I did drop this, so there's a potential it's just broken. All right, I have to ground roll in body ori X in ground control. Cool, okay. Body orientation Y and Z, you're gonna see those periodically try and calibrate, so they'll shift a little bit to their different states, and they're basically just trying to estimate where the vehicle is oriented based on the accelerometers. You can see these shifts are on the order of like a half a degree, so it's barely anything. The vertical velocity is pretty terrible. That is based on northeast down. Wow, look at the altitude. So the altitude is barometric, but we're facing the barometer directly into the wind, so there's a lot of pressure fluctuation. Huh. If I put my hand in front of it, will that stop it? Not really. Well, let's keep an eye on that. It's almost like sinusoidal. It's a filtered reading, so I wonder if there's a problem with the filter. Yeah, I don't like that. All right, well, this is why we test things, right? I might turn the computer a little bit so we're not facing the wind and see if that helps. Oh yeah, that seems to help quite a bit. Get some more tape. Love it when people drive by and just look at me real weird. Love that. Okay. Yeah, that seems to fix the altitude. So that's just a wind artifact. Okay, vertical velocity is northeast down, which means it's just automatically going to be garbage. That should be a little bit better. Okay, can we not? Thank you. It's northeast down, which means we just take the down and reverse it for, well, it's northeast down velocity. Anyway, the point is that it's garbage right now. It's a garbage estimate, and it's not super representative. Ugh, this chair. It's not super representative of what will be seen in flight. So I might want to change that too. TVC is inactive. That much is pretty clear. Okay. The servos really respond to the telemetry radio. The radio in flight will be above, but if you get it close to them, they don't like it. All right, let's see, what else? And then finally you have your raw telemetry in the bottom right. That's pretty easy. Orientation, time, velocities, positions, pretty much everything. Obviously, there's some stuff, there's some artifacts from Sprite there, like the LiDAR is not on, we don't have a LiDAR on here. There's, we're not getting barometric altimeter measurements. Actually, yeah, that's odd. The afterburner, that's not a thing. Anyway, that's that. Thank you, Chris, by the way, for the super chat. We'll be flying tomorrow and miss this, but Joe today is entertaining. Thanks so much, Chris. Hey, Charlie, what's up? Let me make sure I'm still live here. Okay, yeah, so my goal is to just sit here and shoot the breeze with y'all for maybe another 30 to 45 minutes, depending on my battery life. What I really want to do is make sure that this data, when it comes in, is looking good, and that tomorrow when I launch this thing, we're going to have good telemetry all the way up and down. Well, should we launch it? Put it in the chat. Should we launch this thing? I mean, you know, we're not actually going to launch it, but I'm going to show you what happens as we go through the launch states. Things change a little bit. I'll give you a little briefing. So there's a 2-second, I still need to do a little bit more simulation on this, but most of the simulation is done. There is a 2-second orientation only phase. I believe most launch vehicles do some version of this. When you get off the pad, especially with the G8, you're not moving very fast. And you have obstacles that might be in your way. You could have a launch tower in your way. You could have pad infrastructure in your way. You could have lightning towers. And not that it would make that much of a difference, but you kind of just want to hold your position over the pad. And since the GPS, even in a good day, is going to drift 1 to 2 meters, what I do is when we launch, we have a 2-second phase where we are in orientation only mode. And we just look at the gyro rates and the vehicle orientation, and we build our feedback controller around that. Here's a train. We build the feedback controller around that. So for 2 seconds, we're only trying to keep it upright. We're not trying to correct for position. We're not trying to correct for velocity. After 2 seconds, we go into full FSF, so full state feedback. And so that is body rates, attitude, position, and velocity. Almost in that order. It's actually orientation, rates, position, velocity. All those things get fed into a big matrix. They come out as 2 values, which is TVCX, TVCY, and torque. Torque goes through a little bit of math about the current acceleration, finds the thrust, and then works out the angle to basically feed into the rocket. So yeah, then we go into FSF mode. That continues until motor burnout. When burnout is detected, we go into unpowered ascent. We drift up just a little bit. With the G8, unpowered ascent is going to be like 2 seconds maximum. We're not going very fast. So then we detect apogee. After apogee, we go into free fall descent. And then after chutes are deployed, we go into chute descent. But if the chutes aren't deployed, we can still detect landing. Even if something goes super wrong, we don't detect chute deployment, we don't fire the chutes, whatever. If we hit the ground, things get real safe, and we have multiple exit points into the ground data transfer state. Let's go ahead and do that. Here we go. So the first thing to watch for is that 2-second timer where we go from ORI only to FSF, which again is full state feedback. I'm not sure if the gyros have been able to calibrate because the computer moves around so much. So there's a chance, okay, this is a mess. There's a chance we'll have a lot of drift in our orientation. But here we go. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Oh, shoot, hold on. I'm stuck on the table. We have to be accelerating a good deal for us to detect it. 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Okay, ORI only, and then FSF. That's where we get the position in there. The mount is just unhappy with me right now. I'm not even on the right axis. Okay, we'll simulate burnout, unpowered descent. Then it's going to detect apogee, okay, free fall descent, and then it's going to look for no gyro rates for a little bit, and that is how we detect that we've landed. So I'm going to have to leave this here and let it not move. I could not have picked a noisier location. Okay, data transfer. So now we're moving all of the data from the onboard flash chip to the SD card. This can take some time, depending on the flight time. I don't know, a minute, 30 seconds. And then once this is done, we should enter the mission complete phase. You see the position and the velocity measurements are really struggling. They're very noisy and they're very weird right now. That is a big item on the to-do list, is to smooth those out. It's a lovely day. You can also see the MET, mission elapsed time, up in the top right. We've been flying for 1 minute, 36 seconds. And then the vehicle has been on for 18 minutes, 19 minutes now. You can also see the current local time, 16:36:03, and the date, 2020, May 14th, and mission complete. There we go. At mission complete, we re-zero out all of our values because we put the navigation computer back into the just sort of idle state, and we are all done. I'll disconnect and I'll reboot again as a treat. Okay, now, if anyone wants, I would love to take some questions. Oh, I know what happened. These leads got reversed. That's what happened. All right, X and Y. Okay, well, I guess I didn't know what happened, because that doesn't seem much different. Is it still blinking? Oh, we're starting up. Here we go. We have no GPS sets because I rebooted everything. Oh, I know. Let's get a different antenna. Okay, this is an antenna that I have already embedded into a nose cone. All right, so this one has already, there's no telemetry, sorry. This one has already gone into the nose cone. It is already mounted in there. It is another helical antenna, but I don't know if Charlie Garcia is still here. This antenna I purchased kind of on a bet. Charlie, I was complaining to him about the price of good quality helical antennas, which can very easily get into $200 to $400 if you really want something good. And he said, no, do this one. It's €9. And I said, there is literally no way that will work. There can be no way. And you know what, man? It kind of works. It's not good, but it is an antenna that you can plug in and it kind of works. So here we go. This is the new antenna, which is now embedded in the nose cone. I can't really put it up. I'll just leave it sideways. It'll work either way. Okay, here we go. Start it up. Another plane. This one usually takes a little longer to converge. So it might take a minute or two to find some satellites. We'll kind of see how it does. I might actually just tilt it up as a treat here. Just for fun. Because it's at the top of the nose cone. Man, I loathe this setup. All right, there we go. Can we be done? So we're still searching, still haven't found any satellites. Could take a little longer. Like I said, this one takes a little bit. It's a little bit more finicky. When will you transition to LOX-fueled rockets? When someone else designs them. Here we go, nav converging. All right, so we must have some type of solution. I don't know why the GPS sats don't get sent over during the converging phase. But let's just keep an eye on that value. Here we go, 5 satellites. 6. The position uncertainty is dropping and ready for launch. 7 satellites, position uncertainty 3.3, 2, PDOP is about 2, which is pretty good. Wow, 1.84. Okay, this is really good. Yeah, this is great. This is the $9 or €9 antenna. I don't remember the link for it, but if you search for helical antennas and look on like eBay, you can find a lot of really sketchy looking ones where you have to put the SMA antenna port on there yourself, or you can just solder direct. I don't recommend it, but I did it. Wow, this is really good. 1.8 PDOP and 1.6 position uncertainty. So the velocity is still pretty high, which leads me to believe, actually, no, even the velocity measurements down below are really good. I love this. Okay, so we're gonna fly with this. The other one that I used was $100, and this was €9. That's crazy. This one's doing better. I suppose orientation should be checked too, because this one has an upright orientation. And the even better part about this is I'm under a tree right now because I forgot sunscreen. But when we launch, we have a really clear sky. The place that I launch at is very open, and the sky is just super clear. Let's see, people are thinking that the antenna wobbling in the wind could be causing drops. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. All right, looks like we are doing real well here. 13 sats, wow. Previously, I had only gotten like 9 with this. So when I resoldered it, a lot improved. This is crazy. Joe, will you give Echo another go? Yes, I will. Probably this summer. Did you try other antennas too? Maybe a patch antenna? Yeah, so I brought one too. We could try it out if you want. 14 satellites now. Holy Moses. I have a puck antenna. I haven't tried a patch for this yet, but I like the active ones. I think those are a little bit better. Although there's an LNA in the GPS, so we could do a passive antenna. But anyway, there's a puck antenna that was really nice. It was part of the VectorNav package, and that's what I've been using for testing. Just got a couple in my window that are perpetually there to test with. Wow, I'm really pleased with this so far. Did I miss a super chat? Oh no, I think one just came in. Sean Oman says, I loved your appearance in the Banana for Scale ad. Keep it up. Thanks, Sean. That was really fun. I love that stuff. Have I tried autofocus, says Joe Wakefield. This camera sort of has autofocus, but I really don't like it. Am I out of focus? I should be in focus. Do you send all the telemetry data in a big packet or in smaller packets when new data is ready? Thinking about GPS with a slow update rate compared to accelerometers or gyros. Alexander, that's a good question. I send it all as one packet. It would be more efficient to do it in a bunch of different ways. So I send all the, like, There are a bunch of inefficiencies that I've accepted with this. One of them being that I send all of my data mostly in 28-byte packets back and forth between the computers. Man, my allergies are crazy out here. 28-byte packets back and forth between the onboard computers. And then when it comes down to the ground, it's a big, massive, I don't know how many bytes, but it's one big packet that comes down to the ground 40 times a second. And it looks like we're getting that. If you look at the TLM rate, we're pretty much getting 40. Obviously, there's some type of like little leak there somewhere. Wow, our P'd up is crazy good. This is really great. I owe Charlie a big thank you. I can't believe how good this is. I really, like, this had been doing much worse performance before, and I just like rewired it and tried to get like as much unshielded nonsense as I could out of the way. What are we waiting on? Nothing. We're just hanging out. You need better internet. You need better internet, man. I'm out in a field. How do you find the YZ pause? It's latitude and longitude, but you rotate it through the ground heading. So the vehicle knows where it has a magnetometer, so it knows where north is. And then if you know where north is, you know where that's pointed in relative to where you are, you can find your position in reference to the computer's coordinate frame. So Z for the computer at launch is always going to be this way, in reference to the computer's angle. Y is always going to be this way at launch. And so as long as we know that launch heading, that launch magnetic heading, we can rotate that latitude and longitude through the heading and then get the local, like the local lat lon on the computer. And so that's how we get the position, and the, like almost identical process for the velocity. And then once we start flying, we start to filter in the accelerometers, because obviously like the GPS, you can even see it in the velocity now. We're only getting data at like 5 hertz, so you can see that it's pretty blocky. And in order to keep up with the control system and try to feed it constantly good data, when we launch, we integrate the accelerometers to try and aid the position and velocity solution. Does it know where it is based off of and where it isn't? Is this like a missile reference? The missile knows where it is? It knows where it launches, and it knows pretty much everything in reference to that. I mean, it also just knows where it is on the Earth. Like I'm not going to share it, but I know it. Like Ava knows the latitude and longitude. Low internet was for the guys complaining about the focus. Oh, how's Bo Jarnar doing? Oh, he's great. He's loving life. He's sitting in my window. When are you doing the 1 kilometer flight? Probably at least a month. There's a lot to figure out before then, and right now we just need to make sure Ava is a good computer that will work for higher altitude stuff. I want to make a note here for my future self. If I watch this back, it is now 4:48 and the computer is only at 64%. So we have a charger that can't quite keep up with the computer's charge rate, it's fine, it's whatever. But I only anticipate streaming for maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour, when I do this launch live stream tomorrow. And so this is totally going to work, which is great. Love the shades, Joe. Thanks, Devin. Are you okay? I worry about you sometimes. I'm great, man. I'm doing really well. I feel like my work ethic lately has been a little bit unhealthy, just because trying to stay sane with all the COVID stuff, and doing a lot of work helps me feel better, but otherwise pretty good. Let's do some more questions if anyone has them. I can do questions about the ground control, questions about BPS, questions about milk. Wish I brought like a seltzer out here. If Ava knows where it is it legal to launch these because of guidance? Yes, it is. As far as I can tell, and from the people I have spoken to, a number of whom who have done this themselves in various capacities. There is nothing against using GPS to guide a vehicle. You get into trouble with the ATF when you start to put things that hurt others on it, and when you start to do kinetic impact stuff, I think. But GPS is fine. When are you doing the 1 kilometer flight? I think I answered that, but at least a month. I'm from Poland. How are you? I'm good. I wonder if it's nice in Poland. I've never been to Poland. Do you ever get magnetic interference with the metallic or electromagnet-based parts in rockets? Simon, yes you do. And that is why earlier in the stream, I don't know if you were here, it doesn't matter if you weren't, but earlier in the stream I realized I have a magnetic calibration sequence where you move the computer around and it finds its own calibration. Like it has an estimate of its calibration, and then when you move it around, it confirms that estimate. And after you calibrate the magnetometers in the rocket at startup, it can find the heading to within about 2 degrees, which is plenty accurate for this type of thing, at least. But when we what am I trying to say? Yes, when you move it into different environments, you get magnetic interference if you have, like, I don't know, if you had iron screws or something, or you know, things that are magnetic will interfere with your magnetometer. It's really, really sensitive, which is why you don't really want to use it for like orientation in flight or anything. But if everything in your vehicle is static on the ground and you move it around, then it's not too bad. You like calibrate around it. How is quarantine treating you? Honestly, it's not too much different. It's a little weird. I get sad when I go out to the store to buy groceries, or, you know, whenever I have to go out to do something. I get sad when I see other people wearing masks, because at home I can kind of pretend like it's not happening, and in the real world it's not as fun, because it's real, which it's sad. Will this flight be sooner than the Starship 150 meter flight? I think I will fly before Starship does with Ava, but I don't think I'm going to hit 1 kilometer before they do 150. I also am like, I trust SpaceX GNC team, but I have some doubts about that. I have some doubts about them, the choices they have made with regard to where the engine is and the radius of the landing legs. Yes. What OS are you using, and what language are you using to code? So I'm on Mac OS right now, and this is a processing sketch, so it's Java. It's pretty much the most inefficient way that you could do something like this, but I know how to work in Java. I hate it, but I know it. And when I was doing Sprite, I needed a ground control software really quickly, so I just did it as fast as I could. And it works. It's not good, it's not efficient, it makes my computer very mad to run it, but it works. And it's gonna need to be replaced pretty soon, I think. Let's see. How close was the EF3 tornado that hit Nashville? Here in Cookville, I was about a mile or two away from it. I hope you're all right. Yeah, Cookville got hit too. It was like a mile from my house, maybe like 2. But it sounds like we were probably about similar distance away. That was really scary, man. That's the first tornado that I've like been close to in Nashville. I've been here for 3 years now, which is weird. No, 2. I don't know. Yeah, it was really scary. It like destroyed a couple of buildings down the street. I like went into panic mode because I was about to go to bed. It was at like 12 or something. I was about to go to bed. the tornado siren started going, and I was like, it's probably fine, because you hear them all the time down here. And then I got the emergency alert, and then I was like, that's not great. And then the wind started picking up, and I was like, I should get out of bed. And in a panic instinct mode, the things I put on were basketball shorts, a coat, and shoes. That was my tornado gear. And then I stood in the middle of my house, because I don't really have a basement, and just tried to stay away from windows. And luckily it was okay. All right, I missed a super chat. Nicolo says, thank you, Nicolo. What happened to the DART rocket program? I happened to it, is what happened. I think Charlie's not here anymore, but I brought it to Charlie at MIT when we were both still in Boston, and I was like, hey man, let's run this through the wind tunnel. And he very graciously said, okay, sure. But the thing is, I had neglected to simulate any of it in OpenRocket or any type of rocketry program, and I had just neglected to understand anything about how rockets stay stable. Anyway, we put some fins on the back. When I initially brought it to him, it didn't have fins, but we put some fins on the back, and eventually we got it to sort of stay stable, but it just was like a totally ill-conceived rocket. So I have a finned rocket coming up this summer. Parker is aware of that. I have a finned rocket coming up this summer that's going to be really cool. It's going to be active fin controlled, no thrust vectoring, and I'm going to give it another shot. And I think this one has a much better chance of working. Let's see. What's going on with the RCS? Probably nothing. It's pretty much, it's not dead, but it's just off the proverbial project plate. Nothing is going on with RCS right now. I've temporarily abandoned it. Is it bad? That's basically what I'm wearing right now. Well, it's fine to wear a coat and basketball shorts and shoes. It's just not fine when it's a tornado and you're like, this is what I need. What are you doing after the 1 kilometer flight? Maybe 5. I don't know. I think let's keep scaling up after that. I think it gets a little bit more tricky with certifications or not really certifications, but just FAA waivers. But yeah, I mean, I think let's keep going higher. I also want to bring back the landing stuff. I think Ava can probably stick it. With the GPS, I think we have a good chance. Why didn't you make solid rocket motors, instead paying close to $100 for one? So I don't pay $100 for motors. I pay $100 cumulatively for like a couple of them. But every program that I have seen that tries to make their own motors and do everything else gets pretty much stuck on the motor thing perpetually. If you want to do something really complicated, I don't think you should make your own motors and do thrust vector control. Both of those things are already so hard, and I'm just not a propulsion person. Making motors also doesn't lend itself well to the iterative learning process. If you don't know what you're doing, it's really easy to hurt yourself with that. And if you don't know what you're doing with software or electronics, it's still easy to hurt yourself, but it's not nearly as easy as with chemical stuff. Do you have a job besides YouTube? No, this is my job, which is very weird. Let's see. Ever thought about designing a custom tracking system with RF modules and whatever? I'm not doing that, but Nathan, who's a guy in the Discord, is doing that. And I don't think it's really RF tracking. It's more of a camera tracker. Since Ava, I think this is how it works. He'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but since Ava beams down telemetry, theoretically, if you know the position of the rocket in the sky, which the rocket knows its own position, and you know where it launched, and you know where the tracking station is, As long as the tracking station has access to where the rocket is, it can just point to that. Like it's just a couple of motors and a little bit of trigonometry, and you're golden. That's obviously like the theoretical thing, you know. It's probably harder than that. But Nathan's working on one of those. It'll work out. When are you going to the moon? Tomorrow. Can ever think about hiring a second person to film and help? Well, we just hired Parker as an intern, Parker Waugh, and I am all set for now. But if things keep scaling up, maybe. But probably not for a little while. Can you make a tutorial or send a link to the processing graphs and UI? LTLKLR Gamer, there is a video about that on the BPS YouTube channel called Sprite Ground Control, like Telemetry, maybe something. It's one of the videos. It's like a 20-minute video where I just sit in front of it and tell people how I did it. Did anyone buy the dog yet? No one has bought the dog yet. Let's see. I could be wrong, but did you mention at some point making a liquid fuel engine? I am definitely not making a liquid fuel engine. I super regret mentioning that I wanted to do that. I do want to work with someone on a liquid fuel engine, and I super regret telling anyone that, because the thing, I get passionate about this. The thing is, if you want to do it right, there's so much planning and there's so much like design work that goes into it that you just, like, the best thing to do is just keep it quiet until you're like a month away from being ready to fire it or something. So yes, but pretend that I'm not. Pretend I'm not doing it, because it's going to be at least a year, maybe 2 years. How can I tune PID control numbers? You need to have a simulation of your physics. And so if you can build your, but you can, okay, hold on. I usually have a really good answer for this. I use MATLAB and Simulink, but there are a lot of ways to do it. You need to simulate the physics of how the rocket works. So that's going to involve taking the inertia of the vehicle, the moment arm, the thrust of the rocket, the gimbal range of the vehicle. I would start by just looking at a couple simple control systems videos. This stuff is really complicated and people spend their whole life on it. And so you don't have to spend your whole life on it, of course, but it's quite a deep well of information. I think in response to the Sprite telemetry thing, hold on, where is it? Yeah, but the library is really messy and hard. Look, man, nothing worth doing is easy. Stuff being hard is not a reason not to do it. Let's see. What OS and programming language is the Rocket? The Rocket doesn't have an operating system. It's just C++, so embedded firmware, stuff like that. Someone asked, what are we doing today? And that sounds like a great opportunity for me to just re-explain. We're hanging out in a field, and there's no one around me, social distancing. But really what I'm doing here is a little stress test on the streaming setup. So I've got my camera set up. I've got people looking at me real weird because I just look like a big goofus hanging out in a parking lot. But anyway, I've got Ava on the ground. I've got live telemetry coming in from the computer. And you can see that now when I move it. You'll see those gyros move. Let's... Here we go. Oh, you want to see something cool? Let's do an abort. Let's do an in-flight abort. Nothing bad will happen here, of course, but if the vehicle has a problem we can sense that by looking at a couple of different parameters. One of them is orientation, but, excuse me, you also have rates that look bad. Charlie Garcia is not a fan. You also have rates that look bad. I have a box that the vehicle has to stay within. It's a rectangular box. It's a tube, but it's a square tube. It's a corridor. Right now it's 20 meters plus or minus, which is just huge. But if the vehicle goes outside a certain line, position, velocity, orientation, rates, any of those, we call an in-flight abort. And the ground control knows it. So on the ground, immediately when there's an abort, we have a really good sense of that happening. So I'm gonna just move these things so I can launch it here. Okay, ready? So I'm gonna launch it and then I'm gonna tilt it over. We're gonna have an abort. 3, 2, 1, liftoff. There's an abort. See it on the left there? We have an abort. It's gonna stay in the abort mode for about 10 seconds to detect that landing. And then when we detect that landing, we're gonna log all of that data. And we're still keeping telemetry even during a flight termination scenario. And we're not blowing up the vehicle, of course, but here we go. Now we're transferring the data. If we have an abort in flight, we keep the telemetry, we keep everything, and we basically just force it back into the landing state. The live latency is the worst part of this streaming setup, but you really can't do anything about that. Let's see. You should update one of these charts to be a ground cross range chart with the position on X, Y rather than graphed with time. Charlie, that's the right thing to do. It is also a thing which requires a non-zero amount of time, even though the time is very close to zero. And I think for now I'm just not going to do it. Here's my vibe. My vibe, which you may have been able to infer at various points in the last redacted amount of time, is that this ground control software kind of needs to die. Oh, mission complete. There we go. I'll boot it back up and try again. This ground control software kind of needs to die pretty bad. It's very inefficient. It's not good looking. There are way better ways to do that. SpaceX released that beautiful, beautiful UI for the Crew Dragon, and I had an epiphany that I cannot be using this anymore. So I have all the protocol stuff set up. I just need to switch it over to a fancier GUI. Careful. Let's see. Is there a reason why you use a Mac? I use a Mac because I used one in college, and it's just a platform I know. There's no inherent better or worse things, and debating that seems like it never seems like it is ever worth the time to debate that kind of thing. I use a Mac because I use a Mac. That's about it. It's just there. We're doing that SpaceX GUI though, right? Yes, we are. BMI 088 for orientation. No, it's the BNO 055. I would probably switch it down the road though. I had to kind of rip apart Adafruit's library to make it work because the natural, if you can believe this actually makes a lot of sense. When I did the TBC characterization stuff for Sprite, I found that there was like a 20 millisecond delay or something between when the actuation happened and when the gyro saw it. Bosch, in their infinite wisdom, has given you gyro rates at 32 or 36 or 34 hertz naturally, and you can't change those unless you go into the datasheet and you can't change those with the Adafruit library, which like 90% of people who are using it are using that type of library, just a super basic thing, right? So you have to like set those bits manually to get it up to 500 hertz. What does the computer do during an abort? It depends on the flight. It depends on the. Well, I guess it does depend on the flight profile, but it also depends on the portion of the flight. Very early on, when you're not moving that fast, it's cool to just pop the chutes and kill it. When you're higher up and you're farther in the air, you start to like abide by the laws of flying craft, which is that altitude is your friend for a little bit. And so instead of, if you're going really fast and you're already high up, the best way to abort, depending on the scenario, is to just keep going. It really depends though. It depends if your vehicle is dangerous. Depends on a bunch of things. If you have dual deploy, that's not a bad option. I think it really just super varies per flight profile. Okay. Have you considered open sourcing your software? I don't feel comfortable doing it. Part of the reason is that there is like a lot of intellectual property involved, but a good chunk of the reason is also export control. There's just a lot of rocket-specific guidance stuff in the software I build, and there are laws that tell me my prison time and financial obligation if I violate them, and the laws are kind of vague. So I just feel like the safe bet is don't do it. Where's the video about studying sources? Alex, I'm sorry, I never got around to that. I did the video on books, and I really intended to do the video on online resources, and then I never got around to it. Let's see. Are you going to do the launch today? I love the name Jello High. No, I will not be launching today. I'm launching tomorrow, and I'm just testing out the Patreon stream. By the way, I know I plug the Patreon a lot. Part of the reason, obviously I want to thank the folks who support this project, but I also plan on doing, when we do the 1 kilometer shot, I plan on going live on the BPS channel. So some of these flights will end up being like truly live for everyone. But I'm starting out with small audiences, just like this. This isn't on the BPS channel. There's no reason for me to put it up there, and it's just easier to keep it nice and small while we work out the bugs. At least 20 years and $250,000. Keep that software locked up. Have you ever spoken with a lawyer about it? Yes, I have. How does the SD card work? Well, I anticipate I will make at least one person from Boston, Massachusetts / Puerto Rico upset. But there is an SD card on Ava, and a lot of its function is just ease of use. The SD card gives us a really easy way to super quickly after the flight, without any dongles or anything like that, to dump the data from the computer to the computer, from the flight computer to the ground computer, and just look at it. And it pops it out in a nicely formatted CSV file too. It also stores all of the settings of the flight, so all of the gains that were used, ground orientation. It stores the actual latitude and longitude of the vehicle. My plan is, as long as this flight goes pretty well, I'm just going to publish the data to sort of demonstrate Ava's capability, but I am going to have to futz with the latitude longitude data so that people can't figure out where I launch. All right, let's see. What do you think about the Artemis landers? All awesome, love it. Also, generally just love that we have options with that. Same thing as commercial crew, super good to have options. Do I have a Discord server? I do. It is connected to the BPS Patreon, which I don't think is linked below. Someone can call the Patreon bot. Sean, Opinions on summertime road trips. Always good. Always a good opinion on that. My opinion is positive. Let's see. Do I plan on live streaming live footage from the rocket? So I did that, pause blow. I did that on a flight last July, maybe August, June, sometime around then. It was almost a year ago. But I put a video transmitter on the rocket and a ground station on the ground. And I did it in about the worst way possible. Both antennas were omnidirectional, which it's appropriate to have an omnidirectional antenna on the rocket. It's not really appropriate to do that on the ground. You want something directional. So that didn't work out super well. You can go see it. It's the last launch that I live streamed. It's got to be Scout D1 something. And if you go and look at that, you will find the you will find that after the vehicle lifts off, it quickly just loses all video signal. So and it also added like a solid 100 grams. So I might do it, but probably not for a little while, or at least not until I can get another good antenna set up. What type of motor are you going to use for the 1 kilometer launch? An Aerotech H13. Burns for like 14 seconds, 15 seconds, at an average of 13 newtons thrust. And it's got a big kick at the beginning. At the end of the flight, we should be cruising at around 270 miles an hour, 80 meters per second. And it's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be pretty cool. I have concerns about the stability of the vehicle at that speed. But that is why we have really good telemetry, and that is why we record in 4K at high frame rates, just in case. Let's see. Can you say anything about the new intern, or is it a secret? It's not a secret, no. Parker is the new intern. He's a great engineer. I've worked with not her. I've worked with him for a while now, like a year and a half, maybe about a year. But he's worked on and off with me, mostly just like launch site stuff. But we did our level 2 certifications together last fall. There's a video about that with Thrusty McThrustface, and he's a great engineer. So I'm really excited to have him working with BPS over the summer. And he is currently working on a super cool project, and we can probably talk more about that soon. There's a lot of projects, but there are 2 projects aside from Sprint that, well, I suppose there are at least 3. There are 2, not necessarily mini projects, but like medium projects. Projects where I'm pretty sure the complexity is low. One of them, for me, the complexity is all the way low, and the complexity for another person is very high. And the other one, the complexity for me is pretty high, and the complexity for them is low. It's gonna be a fun summer. And then there's a third one, and I can't disclose any of the complexity levels on that. How's Kether doing these days? I haven't seen Kether. I haven't seen him since the fall. Your boy Kyle, who used to live in Nashville, just like up and moved to Pennsylvania. I think he's still doing well, but I don't know how Kether is. All right, making a note for myself. It is 5:18 p.m. I've been streaming for about, I don't know, hour and 20 minutes, and we're down to 42% battery. We've been processing the entire time. This is the streaming setup for tomorrow, so I have a lot of faith in this now. I feel really good about it. We'll stream for maybe 10 more minutes, and then I gotta go, because I don't want to drain this battery all the way. Possible to get t-shirts in the EU in the future? Yes, for sure. VAT, value-added tax, is the thing I'm trying to figure out right now. And then shipping is a little bit more complicated internationally. But at least this point, it's not it's no longer an export control thing for shipping internationally. It's just like shipping is complicated. That's it. So it is coming. Have you thought about using auto PID tuning? So auto tuning uses real data in flight, and it sort of like learns the system in real time. I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. The problem is that takes an amount of time to get right. And so if you start off, basically, if your simulation is good enough, you shouldn't need it. You should be able to do all of that on the ground, and you can do it analytically, which is almost always a more trustworthy thing than auto tuning in flight. You kind of want to be able to simulate every aspect of that. I guess if you knew how the auto tuner worked, it would be pretty safe. But it has to be deterministic. You have to have total confidence in like the model that the auto tuner is going to converge on. Yeah. Let's see. Export controlled shirts. Any stickers that you will sell? Yeah, I think we'll do BPS stickers. We're also going to do remove before flight tags. That's going to be pretty cool. Should be fun. Are you still having laptop battery issues? Are you charging through a hub? Jonathan, good question. Yeah, I've accepted this as like Apple is Apple. So they provide a super fancy computer, and when it is completely under load, it can't be that way for more than like 3 or 4 hours. Actually, no, you know what? It was that way for like 5 or 6 during the last stream. Anyway, I don't think it's worth my time to try and solve it. It's disappointing. I can get a higher wattage charger, but at this point, like, this is plenty for the streams that I'll be doing. It seems like I could probably go for at least 2 hours with this in the field. And if I wasn't running processing the whole time, that would help a whole lot too. Also, good to note, the voltage on our battery on AVI bat has not dropped that much, which is great. I was a little worried about that. Also, how is the image quality? Could still be all right. Does Ava have COCOM limits intact? Good question, Joey. Joey, I named my plant for your name. Your Twitter handle and your tweet is forever on my windowsill. Does Ava have COCOM limits intact? Curious about future-proofing for your next rockets. So, yes, COCOM limits are on here. I can't go faster than 500 meters per second and 50,000 meters, 50 kilometers, and 500 meters per second. I think those are the limits. I wouldn't try to go super close to them just in case, but yeah. I need is a strong word. I would love to not have those. But here's the thing. I reached out to the company who makes this GPS, and instead of responding to me, they subscribed me to their newsletter. And I reached out to be like, hey, I would love to talk with an engineer. And instead of doing that, they subscribed me to their newsletter, and I cannot find out how to unsubscribe. So it was a wholly unhelpful experience. Yeah, so Charlie says, Joe, you can't limit Ava like that. Well, here's the deal. Need is a strong word, but it would be so helpful for a considerable number of people if by the end of this year, and preferably sooner, requirably sooner, I could find out a way to have a COCOM unlocked GPS on here. And if I have to pay for it, it honestly might be worth it. We'll see. It's really cool seeing the data change as Joe taps the table. Oh yeah, because you can see it live. There is definitely a lag. The lag is probably just in the display, and it also is probably because we have OBS open. As I mentioned before, this is just one of those things where, like, it's not a good solution. It's an okay solution, but on the whole, this is not an efficient approach to telemetry. Leaks. If someone buys the dog, can we get a leak in the name of celebration? I don't want to incentivize anyone to buy that dog because I have no plan for what I'm going to do if someone drops 4K on that dog that doesn't exist. Let's see. Yeah, not much lag. I mean, it's probably about a second. Okay, about a half second. Seems to depend, maybe a half second or 3/4 of a second. So why are you testing your GPS in a field and not your driveway? Here's the thing, Abe. Ooh, that's a very cool bird. Did you see that? There it is, over there. I love where I live so much, and I so want to keep it that way. And things get really sucky when people with internet followings have their address leak. And I want to take every step I can to make sure that doesn't happen. And I would politely request that that all of you respect that as well. Basically, just like my work and home life happen in the same place, so it gets real tricky. I don't want to stream anything that discloses where I live. So this is just a random field in Nashville. There are a lot of these. We are seeing it quite instantly on the stream. Boy, I wonder if... Oh, there's also a video delay because of the cam link. There's about a half-second video delay, so it might be pretty close to the right time. That's interesting. Let's see. Let's launch again. So once again, I'll point your attention toward the ORI only section. And that is that when the vehicle launches, we go, okay, that's very loud. When the vehicle launches, we go into a 2-second orientation only mode where we're not correcting for position, we're not correcting for velocity. All we're trying to do is keep the vehicle upright. And so you're gonna see that in the top left, it says ORI only. Oops, sorry about this, hold on. It says ORI only in the top left when we launch. And then after that, we'll go down to flight:FSF, which is full state feedback. And that feeds back the orientation, the gyro rates, the position, and the velocity. And that's like full closed loop control where we try to keep the rocket above the pad. But for those 2 seconds after launch, we're not super concerned. And even though 2 seconds is kind of long, what I wanted to do more was watch what happens when we jolt the vehicle to the side. I want to see it make that transition. And I think we will be able to, because anytime it launches, it's always going to slide a little bit off the pad before it corrects for that. So here we go. 2-second ORI only timer and then a regular old flight. 3, 2, 1. Okay, ORI only and FSF. You can see the mount here. We're not in the right line. And then finally I'll simulate burnout. Actually, we're still going mission lapse timer. When we hit 17 seconds, I'll jolt it down. Cool, that's unpowered descent and now free fall. 17 seconds is the G8 burn time. So now we're gonna stay on the ground, and as long as the gyros don't move for a little while, okay, cool, we've detected, we've landed, so now we're in the data transfer mode. This will take about a minute, where it moves all the data from the flash to the SD card, and then once it's done that and it's made sure of it, it'll erase the flash chip and we'll be done with the flight, and it will say mission complete or something like that. You should do a pitch kick. One step at a time. I'm really worried for this flight tomorrow. I think it'll work, but I also only built the sim yesterday. So we will see. Oh, it's just having some trouble there. Yeah, we will see. I think this is a new record for the most launches in one day. I think you're right, Ben. I just re-upped my Patreon. Hope you can pay for some more summertime road trips with it. Thank you so much, Sean. That's very kind of you. Thank God the overlay doesn't have GPS data. Yes, that is intentional. Okay, here we go. Mission complete. So now I'll reboot the computer, and we'll see if we can acquire all those satellites again. So looks like we had a PDOP of 1.5. That's probably about our best. Cool. Why wipe the flash after transferring to SD? Seems like it would be worthwhile to personally verify the SD integrity before manually wiping for the next launch. Joey, it's mostly, it's a good question, and I think if I were doing higher stakes flights, I would want to do that, but it's a, how do I say this? I have a pretty good record with the SD card stuff, and, man, there's no way to say this without sounding arrogant. Here we go, now INS converging. So, okay, and there we go. Okay, basically, yes, you're right, that would be better. But it also takes time, and it also means that during testing, I have to manually clear all of that stuff every time. And sometimes what I want to do is boot up the rocket like 30 times and make sure it boots up just fine. And there's a lot of, like in between flights, there are, I don't know, there could be 50 to 70 times where I boot up the rocket and just test an individual section of code. And to remember to either have that flash clear function or flash hold function each time is, I think, a little bit tedious. And so there's a bunch of checking that happens. You know, when we land, we check to make sure the SD card is still there before we write to it. We try to make sure we retain the capability to write to it. And that's part of the reason we look at the gyroscopes to see if the vehicle is moving. If it's moving, it's not really safe to be writing to that. But if it's not, and those gyros are still, we have a pretty good chance of getting a successful write. Let's see. What time tomorrow? So, Michael, I think we're going to launch at 7:30 local time, maybe 7:15 local time, probably 7:30. Excuse me. It's going to be streamed for BPS patrons. There's a bunch of links in the chat at this point for the Patreon, but I'm going to have a link up tomorrow morning. So long as everything continues to progress well, we are on track to launch tomorrow with a G8. And it's going to be streamed. It seems like we will now do the stream in 1440p, so 2.5, 2.7K or something like that. It won't be in 4K because the 4K was a little bit choppy, I guess. But it's going to be way better quality than the other streams so far. So, yeah, it should be good. I'm excited for it. Could you give me advice on how to shoot my first videos for YouTube? I have multiple 3D printers, do soldering, robotics, and build lots of things. I have a GoPro and a phone, though. Well, Blaine, the good news is a GoPro and a phone is already more than you need to get started. So I am a big believer in just start with what you have. If you actually, you know, it's probably on this channel. Some of the early stuff, I guess there's one like fancy edited one, but some of the stuff is just like my computer webcam. If you look at, I mean, this is really a different category, but like early stuff with Jenna Marbles or early stuff with a lot of YouTubers, that it's really about the content, not necessarily the quality. And the way you get the content to be better, sorry, let me try and phrase this coherently. The important thing is the content and not necessarily the image quality, unless you're MKBHD. And even still, it's mostly the content. So if it's shot on a laptop or a phone or a GoPro, it'll still be good. Charlie has a bunch of videos with his GoPro, and people still like the content. So the thing with the content, though, is the only way to get good at it is to do it a bunch. So my recommendation is just like start making videos. And like, this is nothing against you, but if you haven't made videos before, they probably won't be good at first. And that's super, super okay. Like everyone, if you look at the early BPS stuff, like none of it is good. But you have to start, and that is my advice. I hope that's helpful. Let's see. Just wanted to say your work is super awesome and inspiring. Thank you, Lord Peaches. That's very nice. I took a shower and everyone's talking about Jenna Marbles. Oh, Charlie. Okay, out of all the places where I would think I'd see Hermitcraft memes, this was not one of them. You should read how many quality complaints I got on the last one. Well, Charlie, we're trying to set a good example. You are an exception to the YouTube rule in many ways. There are many ways in which your channel is an exception to the YouTube standard. Sir, do you recreate the flight software in the sim code, or do you just send data to the board and replace the sensor reading data to see the response? Okay, I think I know what you mean. I don't do what's called hardware in the loop testing, which I should do. Well, I guess it's all relative to like your program's complexity, but you can do them identically. Okay, here's what I'll liken it to. There are ways in which you can write an Android app and an iOS app in the same app, right? Like there are ways that you can build those with React Native or whatever the cross-platform development is. You can build both of those apps, which require you to know different language. You can build them as one, which would be the equivalent of like building your flight software and your simulation as one thing, and then using code generation to build your flight software and deploy it to the computer. You can do that, and there are a bunch of people who have success with that. I generally think it's better to try and keep them separate, but you should try and replace this data in your simulation with real flight data. So Ava is recording at, I think, 50 hertz for this flight. I might try to do 100, but 50 hertz of data for this flight. And I'm gonna take all of that. I'm logging an excessive amount of both filtered and unfiltered readings so that I can take all that data and bring it back into the simulation to make sure I understand how the computer is working and how closely my simulation matched real life. So I hope that answers your question. I think it might. BPS Space Socks can make a comeback. Charlie bought a new mic and lights today, which is cool. I'm getting more nonsense there. You inspired me to build model rockets too, but you know, like far away from that complicated. Well, Jakob, or Jacob, no worries if it's not complicated. I mean, all rockets are cool. Someone asked a question earlier about how to get started with rocketry. Oh, it looks like we crapped out on the ground control. Did we? Okay, let's try to reboot. And, okay, this is good. Oh no, the computer crapped out. Oh, I bet it's battery. Yeah, okay, we're out of battery. I think I ran the battery too low. I can feel it's warm too. Sorry everyone. Let's plug this in. So the ground station was fine, but we ran out of power. When you let the computer idle for like an hour and a half, without, okay, now we're gonna log a bunch of data. When you let the computer idle for an hour and a half, oh, Joey Murphy, if you're still watching, this is the protection function. So what just happened is the computer, when it booted up, it realized that there was still data that it hadn't moved over to the SD card because I shut it down prematurely. And instead of moving into any of the startup states, you'll see nothing's on the telemetry screen. Instead of doing that, it recognized that we still had data, and it safely moved it to the SD card. So then it finally wiped it after checking it again. And here we go. And there we go. Now we're in the actual startup, and you can see the telemetry coming up. Anyway, what I was trying to say earlier is that I didn't, I ran the battery all the way down after letting it idle for too long. Rocket Team built a computer lib for the flight software which could compile it for the desktop process to do hardware out of the loop. That is cool, man. Is there a way to update the Signal R2 firmware over the app, or will there be an update to the app? I know you've made improvements to the software. I want to know if I could upgrade. So Nate, the hardware won't be upgraded. I stand behind the hardware and the firmware on the computer. The app will still be updated. I'd like to do an update this summer where I totally revamp the tuning algorithm. I think there's a lot that can be improved there. And even though like it will fly, like it'll work all right, I've learned a lot in the last year, and all those things can still apply to Signal R2 with its current firmware. So there is no over-the-air update possible with the Signal firmware. This isn't Signal, but if it was, there's no over-the-air updates possible, but by updating the tuning app, it does make things better if you don't have, the ability to tune that stuff on the ground for yourself. Is that really live in the middle of a field? Yeah, why don't we pan around a little bit, and I'll show you where I am. Now I don't have, let's see. Okay, I only have a very tiny screen because I forgot the HDMI cable. But here is the setup. Why don't we just go over it? So down below, I've got a battery. Sorry if it's not in focus, but I've got a battery. This battery powers the laptop right here. Let me make sure, yeah. This battery powers the laptop. There is a big wireless hub right there. Not that big, I guess. And then the cable coming out of it, you can see going down there, goes all the way to this antenna over here. And then that's pretty much it. I've got this tiny short HDMI cable. I've got the tripod here, and that's pretty much it. I'm sorry I can't move it further. There are both people who are curious about what I'm doing, and also I'm working with the shortest cable ever because I forgot the one I needed. All right, well that is probably about as good as any stream that we're gonna get. Let me make sure we're in focus here. You're gonna get a big old dose of scary for a second. How do I get on this shot? Okay, that's kind of awful. Okay, is that in focus? Oh, that's like really in focus. Well, folks, I have to say, it has been, oh, that is so cool. Okay, I want to point something out. You know what we can do is, yeah, I want to point something out. I'm going to reduce the shutter speed and crank down the aperture. Hold on, stand by. Okay, and then shutter. And aperture up. Go higher. Okay, well you can't see it that well. Boy, it'd be great to have an ND filter here. Okay, well, maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. Let's see. You still can't see it. Here's the deal, these blue lights on the side of Ava, they're flickering on and off. They look like they're flickering on the screen, but they're really fading in and out. But because we have such a high shutter rate on the camera, just because I can't crank down the aperture anymore, those lights are coming in as flickering. Excuse me. Okay, I have been streaming for almost 2 hours. The laptop is at 24%, so we're probably about done here. Let's see. Oh, I missed a lot of chat. Sorry, everyone. Okay, well, listen, folks, I think we're good to go. I'm going to turn this off. I think we're good to go. Thank you so much for joining me in this sort of bizarre stream in the middle of a field. There's a big fuzzy guy. It's a lovely day to go outside and just have a time. So that's my statement. I'm kind of procrastinating. I have a lot of work to do tonight to make sure we get ready, but we're launching tomorrow. This is the TLDR after you've watched the whole stream. We're launching tomorrow, Sprint Flight 6. It's flying with Ava, either this computer or the duplicate one that I have at my house. They're both all passed checks, so either one can fly it. It uses GNSS to steer down a corridor. It's a new control scheme. There's a high probability that something will go wrong, even though things look good in the simulations. That's just always kind of a thing. And if you want to watch it live, you can support the project on Patreon. There's a bunch of links in the chat. And if you don't want to, that's cool too. No worries. You're not required to support the project. And especially right now is a good time to save your money. So the video will be up for free for everyone on the BPS channel, probably a couple of days after. Sometimes it takes a few days to get that processed and figure out what I want to say about it to show the data, of which there should be a lot. So that's all from me. Make sure I didn't miss any things here. And the stream should be live tomorrow. I'll post a link on Patreon in the morning, but I think 7 is when we'll go live. I'm gonna get to the site really early, but 7 is when we'll go live. And that's that. So thanks for joining me, and stay safe, folks. That's it. Bye. I gotta stop it. Here we go. Where's my mouse?